CEO of Industrial Defenders. Welcome.
Hey, thank you, Sid. Pleasure to be here.
Industrial cybersecurity spans a wide range of products. I always like to talk to people. Can you frame where Industrial Defender fits into that portfolio of products?
Absolutely. Industrial Defenders had the pleasure of being in existence for almost 2 decades. And we very specifically focus on compliance and policy reporting. But we do that because of our excellent source of asset data from our asset data collection techniques. And so we have a very contextual, deep OT asset inventory that we consider essentially the trusted hub of all asset data to be able to utilize for change detection, change management. We have many, many integrations that rely on our data to provide them that depth of insight to their assets. And as we know, a lot of the passive asset detection methods are limited in what they can actually determine in terms of whether it be firmware revisions, users, or even software running on some of the devices. And so because of that and our change detection, we're able to provide automated compliance reporting. And frankly, our primary industry would be power utilities, specifically in North America with NERC CIP compliance.
One thing I talk to users, I find that they often struggle to maintain their I'll say cybersecurity hygiene posture. First of all, is it the same thing? And so what kind of challenges do you see?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've spent a lot of years presenting OT cybersecurity to industry, critical infrastructure primarily, but in all sectors. And I would say not only do they struggle to maintain it, but actually struggle to even get it started. I've seen some really big Fortune 50 companies that, just couldn't get off the ground with protecting their OT environments. And, really what the lessons are is there's some really basic things that most critical infrastructures can be doing to kickstart their OT cybersecurity programs. Governance, creating or selecting an OT policy and a framework to follow. Asset discovery, knowing what you have, in your plants, regardless of if you're held, liable to a regulatory compliance or not. I still think those are some of the most basic initial attributes, and we can help that because of our OT asset management capabilities and our ability to identify what assets you do have and provide a level of change detection and change management on those.
I would add, a lot of people
Absolutely. And I know it does. And it's interesting. A lot of people would argue that compliance is a waste of time. But I would actually argue the contrary. And that is power utilities have been forced to comply to NERC CIP. And I've seen a lot of big power utility companies launch their overarching OT cybersecurity program based upon their needs from NERC CIP. And yeah, NERC CIP only touches a small percentage of their assets in general, but at least it's something. It's a beginning where, frankly, a lot of the other industries don't even have a beginning. You look at automotive, you look at some of the manufacturing, and I'd say majority haven't done anything in that arena, and at least the compliance gets them thinking that way towards security in that operational space.
The other thing that's been looking at is companies tend to work with OT and IT such that people expect to
Yeah. So here's how I'm going to answer that. I'm not a big fan of the whole IT-OT conversions, primarily for the fact that we all know that the basic tenets between OT and IT are extremely different. CIA, AIC. We've been throwing that convergence word out for over a dozen years, since I long before I began. What I would say about that is how we would tackle that, and how we do tackle that is, if you think about it, the OT environment doesn't necessarily have to be just PLCs and level 2 and level 1 devices. It includes a lot of IT-based devices. So maybe you don't have the IT department walking around the plant floor, but those IT devices, which we handle within our solution, the same as we would the OT devices, and have that contextual depth of knowledge of those IT devices as well, is in itself a collaboration between IT and OT. But at the end of the day, in a classic Purdue model, you still have a DMZ for a reason. And that DMZ is there to protect your OT from your IT. And there's two different, talents in those two spaces. Just like most OT SOCs, they thought they could integrate them with IT, but you still have to have an OT expert butt in seat to triage any of those alerts in OT. Otherwise, you're going to risk taking down that environment.
But before I get to Dale, I just want to look to see the headwinds and tailwinds
Yeah, I appreciate that. We're very excited. We had a fantastic year last year. The tailwinds, we're really expecting to triple our revenue in the next three to 4 years. The tailwinds are, we have here in the States, NERC now with low impact assets potentially being added to the compliance requirements. We've had some real big success in Australia with their AES CFS, which is the equivalent to NERC-CIP. We've got NIS2 in Europe coming online. We've got the Middle East coming online. And even, what's really surprising us is LATAM is now adopting NERC-CIP as their compliance for power utilities, even though they don't have to. So we see a lot of tailwinds. We're also doing some innovation and development in our UI UX that'll be out later this year, where we'll be able to go in after some of these other additional industries with a little bit more oomph behind it. And then other industries are adopting compliance requirements like TSA pipeline. So all those things are really going to come together, I think, here in the next 12 months. Thank you, Sid. I appreciate you inviting me.
We've been speaking with Jay Williams, who's the CEO of Industrial Defender. Thank you